Hello viewers and welcome to Doordarshan Kendra Shillong. We once again are here with a special program, and today the topic is child sexual abuse. Now as soon as I say the term called child sexual abuse, I suppose each one of us can understand the magnanimity of this whole phrase. Very often we pretend that it doesn't happen in society, but let me tell you that child sexual abuse is a global phenomenon, is an issue that touches across mostly all countries across the globe, and of course it affects both the boy child as well as the girl child, and such abuses, such types of abuses can leave a very lasting impression on children who have gone through such abuses. And it is most of the time perpetrated, unfortunately, by sometimes very close people known to the child. It can be a close relative, it can be some close friends, friends of the relatives, family members, community, maybe in the school, outside the school, etc. So today we will be talking about this very serious issue, that is child sexual abuse, and we'll also try to understand if this issue has increased, especially now since we are in this pandemic situation when most children are at home. As I said, because this is an issue that sometimes is perpetrated even by the most trusted person that a child has a close relationship with. But before I go ahead and introduce our guest for this program, let us watch a short clip which highlights this issue once again.
As the entire world went into government-imposed lockdown owing to COVID-19, the rate of occurrence of some forms of crime appeared to decline. However, reports of cases of child sexual abuse has risen alarmingly throughout the world. Child sexual abuse is a form of child abuse that includes sexual activity with a minor. However, child sexual abuse cannot only be confined to physical contact between an adult and a child. Some other forms of child sexual abuse may include obscene text messages and phone calls, indecent online interactions, producing and sharing of pornographic images and videos of children, among others. Studies conducted around the world suggest that in most cases the offenders of such heinous crimes are more likely to be acquaintances, relatives, or even family members of the victim rather than strangers. And due to the lockdown, as many children are forced to remain in close proximity to the perpetrators of such crimes 24/7, we might be dealing with a new pandemic that may traumatize these children physically, mentally, and emotionally throughout their lives. Also, owing to the overbearing presence of the perpetrators, the victims may have less opportunity to get the necessary help and report such despicable acts. In order to fight crimes of such nature, the Ministry of Women and Child Development championed the introduction of the Protection of Children from Sexual Offences (POCSO) Act. The Act has increased the scope of reporting offences against children which were not earlier covered under the Indian Penal Code. It also sets out a child-friendly procedure regarding recording of evidence, investigation and trial of offences, establishment of special courts and speedy trial of cases. It aims to provide protection to every child at every stage of judicial process. Despite this, unfortunately in our culture, many families tend to hush their child when they come forward with such claims, shifting the shame and guilt from the offender to the child. It is important for parents to realize that abuse is never a child's fault. It is imperative that parents, guardians, and responsible adults in the family create a healthy environment where children are encouraged to speak out against such acts without shame, guilt, or fear.
Welcome back, dear viewers. Now that you have watched the short clip, I suppose you're all ready to be introduced to our guests who have gathered here to speak on this topic today. Well, our guest today is Shannon Donna Massar. She is the co-founder and the director of Faith Foundation. We are also being joined by Peacefully Marsharing. She is the program officer from Faith Foundation. So, very, very warm welcome to both of you to Doordarshan Shillong, and for coming to our studios to highlight, to speak about this very important aspect, a very important abuse, a crime, I should say, that is quite rampant in society. So, Shannon, I come to you firstly, because as I said right in the beginning in the introduction, that this is an issue that is most of the times kept under wraps, but then it is an issue that is there. It is prevalent in the society. Tell us a little bit more. What is the term? What do we understand by the term child sexual abuse?
Thank you so much, Moushmi, and we're really glad that we're both here to discuss on this very important issue. So when we talk about child sexual abuse, it's an issue that happens, like you had mentioned, it happens to a boy and a girl, but most of people think that, it can happen only to girls, or it does happen only to girls. But, boys are actually equally vulnerable in terms of being abused. And then also the fact that, when you say sexual abuse, everybody thinks that is just when there has been some kind of a physical contact, between the perpetrator and the child. There's been some kind of a sexual contact. Actually, child sexual abuse, there are two kinds. You look at this contact abuse, there's non-contact abuse. So when you're saying non-contact abuse, it means if a person, the perpetrator or the offender, shows his or her private body parts to the child, that is also a form of abuse. And then say, for example, showing of pornographic material, that is also a form of sexual abuse, which is like a non-contact abuse. Then there are more that when we say like non-contact, it could also be in the form of gestures, in the form of whistling, some way to show that there's some kind of an intention without any contact. That is also a form of sexual abuse. And sexual abuse can be anybody. It could be a man perpetrating it. It can also be a woman perpetrating it. Yes.
Yeah. And peacefully, you would like to add, because a child is an innocent person, and very vulnerable, as Shannon has just mentioned, right? So you would just like to add a little bit more to what she has already said.
Okay, so child sexual abuse is any act done by a powerful person to a child for sexual gratification. So with an intention. So when we talk about child sexual abuse, there are 3 points that we have to keep in mind. The first one is a child. So a child is an individual who's under 18 years of age as per United Nations Convention for the Rights of a Child. And when we talk about a powerful person, can be any person powerful, which is also mean as based on caste, maybe gender, male and female, also maybe of the position. Then when we talk about intention, is when a person have the intention to attempt any offense towards a child, like Ma'am Shannon has also mentioned about the non-contact and the contact abuse. So even if it's a non-contact abuse, a person offender, a potential offender, will be booked under the POCSO Act.
Right. Okay, but both of you have just given us a little bit more insight about what is a child sexual abuse. But then both of you have also mentioned that it is done by a person powerful or more powerful than the child. But then we have also seen cases where an older child perpetrates can do such kind of offense also to maybe a younger child. So can you just elaborate on that also, because those also have been highlighted, are coming up.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely there can be an older child who could abuse a younger child, but we also have to keep in mind that there's a possibility that that child, the older child, may have been abused, or could have maybe is just kind of acting or mirroring what he is seeing or she is seeing, has experienced or seen. because as you know now there's a lot of online pornographic materials that are easily available. Sometimes adults can also, when they do show these materials to children can definitely because children can only learn these things from adults. So we have had certain cases where we've seen an older boy abusing a younger child, and then later only to find out that this child, the older child, was shown some pornographic material, and he just kind of acted on what he had seen, thinking that it's normal, it's okay. Yeah,
that only goes to show the lasting impression, the kind of effect that the child goes through, right? I mean, what it affects the mind, I suppose, to a huge extent, to the child. But then let me just bring in another question. Why do you think such offences are increasing? Because we come to hear of it so frequently, right? What are some of the most important reasons you both feel there is also a jump in such cases, both reported as well as unreported, because many times it goes unreported as well?
So we believe and we think that child sexual abuse has been happening for a very long time. I guess the reported cases now, you can say that they're coming to light for the fact that because maybe people are more aware and sensitized, and so they are reporting on these cases. And like you had mentioned, that there could be definitely a huge number of unreported cases as well. I think it's a phenomena that is happening worldwide. How you had mentioned the fact that how Peace had mentioned about being in power, right? It could be position, it could be it could be position, it could be trust, it could be for example, as so as to say, as adults, right? We expect the young ones to definitely respect us, and so we would do definitely what they ask of us. I guess that's the kind of, it's more like, again, here it comes, there's a power play, there's a gender power play here, of how we want to exert, how those who are in power would want to kind of like exert,
and
for
the
their
child
own.
is obviously the most, weak person. Yes.
That's one of the reasons, I believe.
And when such incidents also happen, the child keeps silent. There is this huge thing of silence. Either the child becomes silent, or if the child reports such incidents to the parents also, the parents will hush the child up. Tell us a little bit on this.
Okay, so why silence is because maybe they are fear, maybe they are scared of the perpetrator. Maybe the perpetrator must have threatened the child not to tell. Or maybe in such cases whereby a perpetrator himself or herself, because even the perpetrator can be both women and men, can be someone very close to the child. There's a thought that if I'm going to report about such cases, that my like for example saying that my uncle or my father or my auntie is abusing me, like he or she might go away and there'll be nobody who would take care of the family. And sometimes children, they are not aware that they have to report, and maybe it's because they are not taught about the right to protection, a right to participation, or maybe the right to speak out about whatever happened to them. The lack of awareness, and also because maybe some children, they have a very low self-esteem and less confidence. So maybe that's the reason why children don't speak out and seek help.
Yeah, and the word that you used is fear. The child fears, because obviously the powerful one, the more powerful one, is perpetrating such crimes to the child, and the child definitely is fearful. And being in fear also has its cost, right? I mean, there are long-term as well as a short-term impact that can have a lasting impact on the child. Let's talk about the long-term and the short-term impact that a child can go through, which can remain even during adulthood. Shannon.
So looking at short-term impacts, so children go through trauma. So looking at the short-term impacts, a child will be fearful. So that's one that's already been mentioned by Peace. Then they feel ashamed of themselves. They feel ashamed of their bodies, and then they go through feelings of, of feeling dirty. you know, that what has happened to them, you know, definitely, because it's something which is, it's something that, you know, that they can't explain, but they know that it's not right. They definitely can go through aggression. They can be angry. So these are the short-term things. Another thing is we can see that you know, feelings of shock as well, that, you know, if it's a family member who's doing it, you know, somebody that they trust, somebody that they love, definitely they would be in shock. And then looking at the long-term impacts, so yeah, so short-term impacts, so definitely there could be some kind of like illnesses that you could see, like, you know, like sexually transmitted infections or diseases that can be medically seen. Long-term impacts, you can say that, you know, they go through problems of, you know, sustaining in relationships, because, you know, the trust has already been broken with someone that they love or someone that they trust. Another is there could be chances of them, you know, not being able to, you know, because it's trauma, right? So, you know, they can keep having these flashbacks.
Okay.
There are certain things that can actually trigger them until and unless they receive some kind of support, you know, that for the healing process to happen. There are other cases, you know, that we've read of children when they grow up, they become more promiscuous, you know. So promiscuous in the terms of, like, you know, having casual relationships, you know, with as adults. There are higher chances of them being abused as adults, you know, in relationships. You know, they may undergo domestic violence, they may be easily trafficked, you know. So those are the kind of the impacts. But definitely the impact, you can say it is long lasting until and unless there's some kind of support that is given to them.
Yeah. Peacefully, you would like to add quickly before we move on to the next thing?
Like short-term impact can be like if a child is not performing well in a school, and also it can also be like he or she might perform well in order to prove, maybe to show to everybody that he or she is not being abused. Then maybe self-blaming is also there. So especially when there's self-blaming, a child will feel more guilty about what had happened to
blame.
Yes,
Himself or
yes,
herself.
yes.
Yeah.
Because that's why the reason why when we talk about, when we give information about how to protect themselves, we usually mention about you should not blame yourself for whatever happened. Because if a child continues to blame herself and him or herself, that means it's very difficult for them to overcome from such situation.
Okay, so what I understand is that, you know, this really has a short-term impact on the child as well as a prolonged long-term impact that can carry on till the child grows into an adult, even into relationships, as you said, you know, because it can move on to the next level, right? I mean, this person also can become a little abusive in the future, etc. And I think, you know, bringing a very low self-esteem to oneself or trying to fit in also, I think one would also have that problem to fit in, because you know that, you know, I am a little different, you know, I have been touched and some harm has been done to me. So what we understand this is such a serious offense, right? And there are a lot of myths and misconceptions also related to it, right? And one you have already mentioned right in the beginning, saying that, you know, it only happens to girls and doesn't happen to the boy child. But the boy child also can go through and will be silent, because, you know, our society is such that we teach, right, that boys are not supposed to, not supposed to cry or to be emotional or to show, right? So tell us a little bit about the myths and the misconceptions related to the child sexual abuse.
So there are a number of myths. For example, they say that, you know, like you had mentioned, it can happen only to girls. There's another myth that they say that it can happen only to pretty little girls, right? So that's also one of the things. But then child sexual abuse, not necessarily it has to happen. I mean, we can't really say that, okay, so this child is pretty, but all children are the same, right? There are other myths that we've come across, saying that, you know, a piece if you can mention. I'm just trying to recollect. Yeah.
So like wearing revealing clothes can be something that, like, it's a myth. We can't say that wearing revealing clothes can make people feel like abusing a person. Because when we look at, like, there are numerous cases whereby even children at the age of 6, maybe below 18 or below 12 years old, are being abused. So we cannot just generalize saying that it's because of the clothes that they are wearing. And also, like, sexual abuse happens, it doesn't happen at home, but it happens outside in the parks. But that's something very wrong, because child sexual abuse happens at home as well, or maybe in schools, or maybe in the tuitions, then maybe in a like temples. Like we've seen cases like that as well. Yes. And like if a child is being abused, he or she is like his or her life is over. So something which is very wrong. If a child is get proper guidance and support and proper counseling, I don't think we can say that like her or his life is over.
Because as you all also mentioned that most of the time it has a lasting impression on the child, because the child continues to blame himself or herself. So once we take off that blame from the child, from within the child, I think the child will be able to be more confident and will be able to face, you know, all the vagaries of the world at large, right? But yes, quickly.
So another thing that I would also like to mention in terms of like the myths, right? One of the myths they say that, you know, if it happens to a child, it means the parents are to be blamed. Actually, when you think about it, that's actually just a myth. It's not true. I mean, not everybody is actually kind of aware, I guess. You know, only if they're aware of the situation, if they're aware, if they know how the skills to teach their children, then definitely, you know. Another myth that we've seen is that they say that, oh, if it's a drunk person who's doing it, that means, you know, it's basically him doing it without really knowing, right? So that's also a myth. You know, a person, whether he's drunk or not drunk, whatever he's done, the onus is on him, right? Of the crime is on him.
Yeah, another thing that we should now come is the focus is online exploitation. Because these days we have seen, especially now, you know, a child is quite glued on his or her mobile and laptops or the tablet, etc. Because even our education now, it seems, is becoming more online, right? And in any case, the child is hooked on these days more to the mobile phones, etc., and thereby can be accessible and fall victim to such incidences. Let's talk about this. I mean, how bad is the rate of you know, online exploitation of children?
Okay, so starting this pandemic, you know, starting when the lockdown started happening, so there was a news that had come up. So it was a global report that had come up saying that, you know, there was an increase in the rate of demand of the number of child sexual abuse materials, as they say, and India had ranked the first among all other countries with, you know, so we can say that definitely, I'm not saying that because of the pandemic there has been an increase, but it's just that I guess it's coming to light right now because there's a huge number of people who are, you know, who are active online, you know, both children and adults as well. So India is like at the top position, next to then Pakistan, and then third is Bangladesh.
Okay. So that means, you know, there is a high chance of a child being, you know, exploited also, or you know, abused.
Yes.
And when we talk about, you know, online abuse, what does it actually, like, what is it exactly?
Okay, so it could be in the form of, you know, there's a process which is called grooming, right? So maybe Peace can explain what grooming is about. It's how, you know, you kind of build trust with a child. It could be in person, it could be online as well. So building trust with a child, saying that, you know, okay, let's be friends, and then finally, you know, okay, then online, would you be available for a webcam meet, you know, and then would you be willing to send me your nude pictures? So in a way of how you groom the child to send you these kind of materials, you know, and we should remember that it's of no fault of the child as well. And sometimes maybe as children being playful, you know, maybe sending certain you know, pictures to their friends. You never know, right?
Okay.
Maybe say as adolescents or as teens, but it could actually, you know, land in the offender's
in the wrong persons.
hands as
in the
well.
wrong
Yeah.
hands, yeah.
So those are the kind of things that
Yeah.
happen online.
Yeah, so what you're trying to say is that the trust is built slowly,
Yes,
online by the
yes,
offender. The
yes.
offender he or she perfectly knows what he or she has in mind
Yes.
to do, but to build the trust, it is a slow process. And
Yes.
once the child is absolutely comfortable and thinks that it's nothing, it's okay for me, and he or she is my good friend,
Yes.
and it will not harm me. So a child opens up,
Yes.
and then we know to what extent it can lead on,
Yes.
right? Okay, but then there are certainly laws, there are certainly organizations who are helping, who are there in the field, and we have the POCSO Act also of 2012, which is very gender neutral also, and which is very encompassing also, quite a broad-based act, which tell us a little bit how these acts and laws are there to prevent children from, at least if not preventing, at least that the offender should be punished.
Yeah. So responding to a child who's been abused is also a form of prevention, because child sexual abuse is a process. It's something that does not happen one time. It can continue on for years. Say a child of 6-7 years, it can continue till the child is an adult, or an adolescent. So the POCSO Act has been brought in, which is one of the most stringent act. And what we've seen to this act is that the blame, the blame is actually put on the so as to say, on the offender. That means he needs to be the one who has to prove himself that he's not done the offense. And that one very special thing about the act is that when a child discloses, when a child shares, that means the state has to believe that it has happened, because definitely a child cannot make up such things, right? Yeah.
So we have this act in place,
Yeah.
which can definitely protect the child and give it justice, right? Give the child him or her justice. Quickly, let's touch upon, because we are almost running out of time, some of the measures, the personal safety education program that I believe even Faith Foundation is involved with. What is it all about? If you can just give us a gist of it, please.
Okay, so the personal safety education program is a program to prevent from child sexual abuse. So this program, it is a prevention program, a life skill module. It is more like a school-based curriculum that teaches children about attitudes, skills, and knowledge. And it also it also teaches children about on decision making and how children should protect themselves from being from sexual abuse. So this PSEP that we are doing in school. So we cover children from 12 to 18 years of age. That means from class 3 to class 10. So it is an age appropriate language and information. So we don't talk about child sexual abuse when we talk to younger children. So when we talk to older children, adults and girls and boys, so we do talk about the online safety and about gender equality and about how to maintain boundaries. So we are presently working with 26 schools in Shillong, government schools. We are doing this program in collaboration with the education department, and we are also working in Ribhoi district with 5 schools.
Right. So we really need such intervention programs, and I can see that you all have some posters and other materials also, which I think are circulated to schools and given to children, because I think teaching something called the good touch and the bad touch is very important, right from thing. And here lies the role of the family, because a child goes out only from the home. So if the parents need to play an active role, then comes the role of the school wherever he or she is going, and then of course the community also at large to be very, very vigilant, to be alert, and of course report such cases, right? I really wish we could carry on this discussion, because there's so much more to cover on this, but then I think time only permits us to speak this much. But I'm sure that with all kinds of information and the inputs that both of you have given us today, the viewers who are watching this program will definitely be more alert about this, and such programs are only to create more awareness. And thank you so much, both of you, Shannon as well as Peacefully, for coming to the studio of Doordarshan and enlightening us about this very serious offense that we have taken up today, called child sexual abuse. Thank you very much. Well then, dear viewers, well, we have taken up this important topic once again. It is our endeavor to highlight this topic and to make you understand that this is a reality, and let us not shrug away from this reality that it has not happened to my child. Maybe your child has not spoken about it to you. So it is so important to open the channel of communication and forever be alert and to make sure that the child is safe, because a healthy society is only and only based by a child who is the future and a healthy child. Thank you very much for watching this program. Until next time, from all of us here, it's goodbye.